Hello, welcome to part 2 of Newbie Tuesday, where we're talking about attack timings. In part 1, we did some we did a good amount of theory crafting and took a good look at a pretty simple game 1, honestly. There's like not that much going on. The most important ideas I wanted you to take away from it is that this timing attack that you came up with worked. There was nothing particularly unique about it, just some stalkers, zealots, and immortals. But that it worked, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, cool. I'm doing this attack, and now I have something to work with. Let's take a look at another game that Redbone played after he's been playing a few games, and he has made some adjustments. He has made some adjustments to his play that we're actually going to see pop out pretty significantly. And one thing that I guess bugs me a little bit is that Redbone was writing some things in this little write-up document that he provided to me. Like, ooh, I got broken with Zerglings when I had a Zealot here at my wall-off. I guess I need to build 2 Zealots instead of a Zealot and a Stalker. And then in this game, he built a Zealot and a Stalker. Now, one thing that I think is so important is even if your adjustment is wrong, right, even like the correct answer is you can just place your buildings a little differently and you won't get broken as easily by Zerglings. And then you can get like a Sentry instead of the Zealot and be like super fine. But like, even if your adjustment is wrong, make sure you're listening to yourself. Make sure you come up with adjustments and do them. That's one of the weirdest things that I have ever seen that happens all the time. People say to themselves, oh yeah, I really need to do blank. And then they just don't. They like do the opposite of it. I've seen people be like, yeah, I really need to transfer my workers when I expand. And it won't be that they, like, forgot. It's that they were thinking that there were other things that they still had to do that were, like, really important. Just stop. See, here we already see an adjustment that Redbone makes for this game. In the last game, we saw that his first gateway was, like, back here, and then he didn't wall in at the front. But here, yeah, making that small, tiny adjustment, and that's good. And the funniest thing happens in this game, where this Zerg player steals this gas geyser. And what Redbone discovers is that he actually doesn't need this gas geyser. He got this second geyser so early in the previous games that he played that never once did he actually consider, well, maybe I have too much gas. I mean, if you have extra gas, one of the big adjustments that you can say is never, well, I need to figure out how to spend my gas. You say, well, let me just mine less gas, right? So here comes out the Zealot. Here comes out the Warp Gate. And we also see a Stalker will be popping out in a moment. We actually are going to go to the Redbone cam. I hope none of you are watching this with a family nearby. So we're looking at the Redbone cam. And what does he do with his saved up money? Remember how we had a very early second gateway? Well, hey, no, this time we're waiting a little longer to build our 2 gateways. And here pops down our robotics facility. And this gateway is actually not going to be idle for as long as it was in the previous games. In the last game, we had 9 minutes as when we took our expansion. Last game, it was 9 minutes. So it looks like Redbone will finally be able to take it out. Here's Warp Gate finishing up right now. Good timing on these gateways. Now here's something that you should always be very aware of. Notice that these gateways finished right around the time that Warp Gate was finishing. Look for things that line up nice. Was this intentional or not? Hell, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But this actually happens a ton where it wasn't intentional, right? And what I want you to do is just rewind back and just say something to yourself like, oh, well, I guess 28 food is a really good time to start building gateways. A little before 5 minutes is when I should build my extra gateways. That sort of thing. Little tiny adjustments. Are we always making probes? Yeah, sure, you can ask those sort of adjustment-focused questions. Those are just general improvement, but we're thinking specifically about this timing attack. And here's something that was really exciting that Redbone discovered. That when he does this really late second gas, like there's his second gas popping down, he can still get this immortal and still get all these units that he wanted to anyways. Just period. There's nothing else. He has everything that he had beforehand. He just has them all earlier now. And last game we ended up expanding at 9 minutes, and this game we're actually going to end up expanding at Technically 7 minutes and 15 seconds, but he didn't have his probe there. Wow, a full 90 seconds earlier. Holy crap, right? We have suddenly made it better. But the big thing, again to note, is that look at this little mixture of units that we have. Last game we had 2 Immortals and a bunch more, and a few more units. We have a slightly, well now we have approximately the same army as we did before. And it all overall looks pretty damn good. Now, one thing that will happen is sometimes you will get messed with. We're going to look at that in the next game. The next game that we're looking at is a game where things just kind of go haywire and wonky and miserable. So, we've talked a lot about the leading up to the expansion moment, and that was this game. Or that was much of last game, was the leading up to the expansion. It took us a little bit of time to get that expansion up. And now we have our 3-gate and our Robo. Can we do anything like get a Forge for a fast +1? That will directly help with our timing attack. We're poking around. We're starting to get some information. What information can we gain with this for our timing attack? Is he going Roaches? Is he going Zerglings? If he's going Zerglings, hell, I might be emphasizing Zealots more than I'm building Stalkers. But overall, I just really liked this because Game 1, quite honestly, just did not quite look good from like a fundamentals point of view. But then suddenly, hey, we don't need this assimilator so early. Hey, we don't need these gateways so early. And remember the adjustment he said he wanted to make rather than 4 gateways, just building 2. And he said he wanted to keep his robotics facility active as much as possible. In the APM tab, we see, look at this. Our Protoss player has 28 actions per minute, and this is still cropping up to be a pretty intimidating looking push. And remember in last game, what was the big thing we said? Maybe I can have 4 Immortals instead of 3 when I go do that timing push. And amazingly, here it is. We're at 11 minutes in both games, but in the first one, there were just 3 Immortals. In this one, there's 4. There's a lot more Stalkers and Zealots than there were in the previous game, especially because we can now do a little bit of Round of Warping. And what's kind of amazing to me about this is that it is only noteworthy and impressive feeling if you compare from game to game. It actually, you feel the same, and it can feel like nothing's getting better. If you don't compare game to game, because I know this happens, or used to happen to me a ton, where it was like, I would be constantly thinking to myself, like, alright, well, I Chrono Boost Immortals as much as I can, and there you go, and then I'm going to attack, alright, cool, I'm going to attack when I have 3 Immortals, and just because a few kinks got worked out, suddenly I was winning more, and I didn't quite know why. But if you come here and you're just like, oh yeah, well at 11 minutes I have a full extra freaking Immortal, and like, my food is way higher than it was before. Oh, I actually did smooth this out a lot. Or even the reverse, if you're comparing from game to game, what happens if this was game 1 from Redbone? And in game 1 he did this great attack, and in game 2 he did an attack that kind of failed. He might say to himself, yeah, I've done that big Immortal timing push and it doesn't work so well. And the answer is, no, it actually works amazingly well. You just did one poor execution of it. So we see a lot of gateway units getting warped in. The attack right now timing seems to be very, very scary. And let's take a little bit of an examination of the after period of time. The after period of time. So here we're going to see this attack with virtually no unit organization. Virtually none. Let's take a look at our timing attack. The amazing result, again, from tons of people who submitted me games. When they did an attack between 10 and 12 minutes, it just kind of seemed to work and they didn't know why. And look, with the ability to morph in 5 Stalkers at a time, and look, just sort of briefly waltzing around. Yeah, alright, that was awesome. Oh yeah. We have some Corruptors coming out to defend the Colossi that we're not building. And of course, the Corruptors are not so good at shooting down. Here. So it looks like our timing push worked. Okay, so great. So let's do our before, during, after sort of analysis. But you know what I want to begin with? I want to begin with the after period. So I've moved right to here. How does this timing push work out? Really, really, really ridiculously, stupidly well. Alright, cool, great, good. But when I come back here, I want to pretend for a moment that this attack maybe doesn't quite work so well. I want to pretend that, yeah, the attack, it did some damage, but I don't know, overall, I had to retreat at the end. Is this the mixture of stuff that I want? Is this the mixture that I want? For me, I would actually say, you know what, I'm going to probably build a robotics facility if this attack doesn't work. That's kind of an after thing. I'm going to build a robotics facility if this attack doesn't work. I'm probably going to get a forge and start chrono boosting out a +1. And I kind of want to get a third. I'm establishing something to go to. And notice how I said Colossus? That was because we already have a robotics facility done. I didn't say to myself, well, let me try to get Templar because herp derp derp, I feel like it. I kind of want to base my adjustment for the later game stage on the fact that this is the timing push that I did. Pretty straightforward. Like if you, I'm trying to think, let's see how the other races would, let's do this in some other circumstances. Let's say you wanted to do a Blink Stalker timing push. Then it would probably be bad to do a transition into Colossus. You should probably do a transition to Templar. That seems a lot more clear. If you try to do a really big Marine Ghost push early on against a Protoss, and you see some Colossus, when you pull back, you probably are going to need to rely a little bit more on Marauders and maybe doing some drops. If you opened up with a drop-focused play and you see Colossus, then yeah, you're probably going to have a little easier time going into Vikings. So these are all the questions that I want to ask myself in terms of now that I'm here, what do I want to do? What you can do is also say something like, man, I should really have just not built this 4th gateway and instead built a forge. If your timing attack is working really, really well, like I'm talking like this well, where you just attack and you cream your opponent, and this is a creaming, right? This is not close. Then what I want you to do is I want you to ease up on the attack. That is a critical step. Ease up on the attack. Thinking the opposite direction can make it a little more clear. If you have a 5-gate Immortal push that works, why go 6-gate Immortal push? Because you want it to very work? No, you want to barely win. And sure, you can kind of win well, right? I don't want you to just be like attacking and being like, I'm winning too much, I will back off. But you want this to be just enough to do a good chunk of damage. And the reason I would like a Forge over a 5th Gateway is because a +1 upgrade is better for us later on. Or maybe we build our Robotics Bay earlier instead of this 5th Warp Gate. So that way we can get Colossi earlier on. Maybe we don't build this 5th gateway and we take an expansion so that way we can just get better resources. One things I always want you to think about is how to make this attack be a little bit less good so that way we can be stronger later on. What if your timing attack is failing hard? Then you do the opposite. Then you try to bolster it up. If a 3-gate Immortal push is not working, do a 5-gate Immortal push and then maybe try to readjust. In terms of some before things, I'm also noticing, hey, could we have snuck in a sentry at any point here? Maybe we can just get 1, maybe 2 sentries. Maybe I could take 1 gas geyser here a little bit earlier. Could I have enough gas to get a sentry at this point in time? Ask yourself a question like that. Hey, I want to get another sentry. Oh, hey, you know what? I would have had 2 full minings of gas, or 2 full minutes of mining gas. Yeah, I could have had enough gas to get a sentry. Here we don't actually use these geysers too much at all. And also the gas is kind of high for Redbone anyways. Hell, he might not even need to mine more gas. Just build 2 sentries right off the bat and build a couple zealots. Yeah, look, we're floating all that gas. Alright, cool, yeah. And another thing that maybe I'd want to do beforehand is think about maybe getting some upgrade. I think you heard me say that before. Another thing that I want to note before we hop into the next game is that I would really say that the attack itself probably is the last thing you want to look at. Briefly look at the attack and say, okay, what could I maybe have gotten some sentries for this? What should I do after this attack? Those are good questions. But when I say I want it to be last, what I don't want you to do is have a crappy opening, a crappy follow-up, and look at your timing attack and say, man, boy golly, I should micro a little bit better and I'll be in good shape. I want the micro and the control and the decision-making of the battle to be deprioritized. I want all the structures to be in place in a better way beforehand. Now, that was actually not the second game that he played, but hilariously, after game analysis, I made a wonderful accidental discovery as a result of the Zerg stealing my second gas. I didn't need it immediately. Taking my Expo after my first Immortal finished felt fairly safe, and it actually was quite safe. Haha! I just came across a third base he had in the replay and didn't even know about it. I mean, he's just liking the way this push turns out. But notice that this is something that I thought was really interesting. He said after problems, didn't scout the third base. He says that was a problem. Now, technically, it's important to be aware that your Zerg buddy may be taking a third base. That technically is an important thing to have under your belt. However, a lot of good timing attacks don't necessarily need that knowledge. He might have 3 bases, he might have 4 bases, but as long as he has more than 2, my timing push works, and that's what I want you to do. That's how I want you to think. Now here is a game that just went abysmally for Redbone. And this is a game where I want the adjustments that you make to be really, really... I guess I just want you to be really careful, right? From game 1 to 2, some really obvious ones. And one not obvious one. The really obvious ones, ooh, we have our gateway timings better, we're chrono boosting more, we're being more active with our probe transfer, we expanded earlier. And the big one, wow, we didn't need our gas that early. Okay, great. Now look what can go wrong in this game. The first 2 games we've seen have been so good, for Redbone. Everything just went marvelously as they can. Except, damn it, Redbone, chrono boost when your first pylon finishes. Damn it, Redbone, damn it. He's building, he builds his cybernetics core. This is the suboptimal placement because it's easier for Zerglings to fit through here. So incidentally, his opponent, whose name is Tobiasaur, which I love, unless he's from Europe, or from Europe, because they don't say Tobias, they say like Tobiasaur, Toby, my name is Toby, right? So he gets the Zealot and the Stalker, and the Zergling rally gets into his base. Oh no! And he tries to micro, okay? Ooh, not so good. These 2 gateways, you know, they were built at around 5 minutes, like we said, but we're starting to get distracted, right? And now we're pulling our probes off. Yuck, everything going oh so wrong. Come on, Warp Gate, finish. Damn it, Warp Gate, finish. No, Warp Gate. So, I'm sure this has happened to you. I know this has happened to you. One of the worst feelings in the known universe. Now, first thing I want you to find solace in. First thing I want you to find solace in is to say, wow, this is going terribly. I'm still pushing at 11 minutes. Right? I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it, right? That's the first thing I want you to say. Again, think of it like it is Fun Day Monday. LOL, I got attacked here. Well, I'm doing this timing push at this exact moment. Ugh. Man, rats. Guess I'm still going to go for it. And here comes out our good, friendly Immortal. Again, hey, our gas is looking a little high. Did we really need all this gas mined? Well, it looks like we're super duper supply blocked. Here comes some more pylons. And what? And here, oh yeah, more Zealots trying to make their way in. Immortal will quickly defend against the Zerglings. Zerglings are trying to kill off everything. Stalkers come out. Oh no, our Immortal. We wanted that Immortal count high for our timing push. Good thing that they are indeed Immortal. Now the funny thing is, at this moment in time, if you are Redbone, right, you've been supply blocked for a while, you don't have as many probes, in the Units Lost tab, wow. Well, wait a minute, Zerg is actually losing way more than we are. If we go to the Everyman cam, we realize Zerg is actually kind of far behind. Pretty damn far behind. So what that means is that it's very easy in a spot like this to convince yourself that that early Zergling break-in, which again is completely repairable, that is the reason that you lost. And to overly prepare for it. Remember how I said in the last game, I said, he told himself, I must build 2 Zealots to prevent myself from getting broken by Zerglings. First of all, that's too big of an adjustment. Just try to reposition your buildings first, and that way you're building the same of everything and getting a better result. But second of all, he said that adjustment, and then, he said that adjustment based upon this over-focus in the early game. The over-focus on that Not necessarily a bad thing. Sure, the Zerglings broke into his base, but a whole lot got killed off. And it's important to, again, do this before, during, and after. Is the push going well now? Screw what happened beforehand. Is there a good place to go now? Screw what happened beforehand. And again, this is one of these early games from Redbone, where look at how late that expansion is. But no problem, because you know what? It's 10 minutes, so it's time to push. Let's see how it goes for Redbone. He gets some sentries out because he has some extra gas. Here are the 2 gateways instead of 4. Good, he's following along with his list of adjustments. Is this the right army? Oh god, I hate it when that happens, when I don't have a solid constriction there. But yeah, it looks like Redbone is actually getting a little leery of moving out at 11 minutes. I said it kind of at 12 minutes was the latest you could possibly go, and Redbone is just still going for it. Does this look like a terrible army or what, right? We even have our Immortal up here that's not doing anything. We have 2 Immortals at 12 minutes, and we had 4 Immortals at a little before 11 minutes last game. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And I know what happens in your head is you're thinking, oh god, I have to attack because Day9 told me to, he's making me do this, ugh. And you start to still focus on the fact that those Zerglings broke you early game. And all of a sudden we're not making probes. All of a sudden we're not macroing. We're trying to wait for our pylon to finish. Is that Immortal ever going to come? Yeah, he is. Good. Now here's something that actually kind of blows my mind. Zerg has 5 spine crawlers, this huge advantage from constantly sending Zerglings in at the start of our game, or so we perceive it. And we just attack anyways, and it almost actually works. It actually does a huge amount of damage. The Zergling numbers manage to be so high that Redbone cannot quite manage to break it, but there's these intuitive decisions he's making, adding on more Zealots, because he sees more Zerglings, completely, totally freaking obvious. And meanwhile, back home, oh no, things in disarray. And at this point, it's very easy to just suddenly give up. But don't. We are against a 2-base Zerg. We have tons of Chrono Boost. We can do all sorts of creative stuff. So I'm actually going to speed it up to the moment when Redbone loses. And I want to show you what Redbone says, right? He's just taking an expand because that was kind of one of his goals. As he would look at in the game, he'd be able to watch this and say, yeah, I should not have been able to expand. That was not safe. I should not do that next time. And then this moment comes up. We have more Hydralisks walking on in. And the Hydralisks step up and kill us off. And there, Redbone leaves the game. Now, one thing that I want to look at is that this was game 2 that he submitted. Yeah, he said, this game felt horrible from the point the Zerg broke through my Zealot. I needed to get out a second Zealot instead of Soccer to save gas and rehold my ramp. Not necessarily true. You can do the building placement. I'm going to be honest and say, at first I wanted to exclude this game from this exercise, not because I lost. I know that is going to happen, but because it felt so bad/wrong losing to Zerglings. Right, this sentence is the big thing that I want to emphasize, right? Now, I will tell you a story of a ladder game I actually played probably like a week ago, where I was dominating this Terran player, right? I'd spawned as Protoss in these games, and I was just crushing him, and I got Storm a little bit later than I should have. And when we got into some big engagements, I only had like 1 Templar with Storm, and I whiffed the Storm, and he kind of beat my army. He didn't crush it, but he just kind of beat it. And I was like, oh god, oh, that's so stupid. I just need to get Storm earlier. I know what the problem was. I know what it was. Ugh. I went back and watched the game, and he hid not 1 but 2 bases really, really early. Like super incredibly early. And whereas your usual Terran player would be having 5, maybe 6 barracks on 2 bases, he had 11. So he was getting way more units than I was expecting, right? Ridiculous more units than I was expecting. And in fact, I didn't need Storm earlier. The way I was playing, if he was indeed on 2 bases, I could have delayed Storm way more. It's so easy to focus on the big thing that stings and hurts so much instead of what was actually happening. And what I want to do is come back to this moment in gameplay, right when this push is happening, and note that, yeah, we're behind on probes, but man, we really need to keep on adding on dem probes. But another thing happens where Redbone does not quite macro and get more Colossus after this push happens. So the push has failed, as you can see on the minimap. Here comes the Robotics Bay. This is exactly as we planned. There's the Forge. I really like that, so we can get some upgrades for some late game stuff. But I think that the reason Redbone lost is because this Colossus Den was done. We had the ability to make Thermal Lance, and then we just didn't. And we have all these gateways that can make units, but we're not doing that. We're not making any sentries either with our excess gas. And look at this. Still nothing going on, right? Before, during, after. Make sure you ask all those questions. Before our timing attack, yeah, we needed to close this off. During the timing attack, well, yeah, I guess I should be warping in Zealots because he has Zerglings. After the timing attack, I need to be getting Colossi a lot faster. Hell, I should probably be getting this Colossi while I expand, or while I attack. Because imagine if I was doing this attack back here at the 11-minute mark. Well, I guess in this game it was closer to 12 minutes. Imagine if I was doing this big timing push here, and while I was doing this timing push, a Colossus Den was being built, right? A Colossus Den was going down, a robotic support bay. And then all of a sudden, when this attack fails and Zerg comes back, there's 2 Colossi with range up here, obliterating absolutely everything. Timing attacks are not exactly designed to win games. It is actually sort of a fallacy to think that they are designed specifically to win games. They're designed to give you an advantage, just by the same token that building a lot of probes gives you an advantage, or getting an upgrade gives you an advantage. So with that in mind, you need to think what you're doing with that advantage. All right, in the time that you're doing this timing push, yuck, ugh, ooh, it didn't end up going so well. Well, that's fine, right? It was designed to try to give you an advantage, and just because it didn't doesn't mean that the game is done. It did other things, like Zerg didn't have a third and would not have been able to get up a third given this early Zergling play. So our Colossus is actually the correct decision. What we're going to do is we're going to finish up with one last game between Redbone and a guy named Cap'n Crunch and just see how the attack goes, see how everything looks, and hopefully you can steal the attack timing ideas and steal it too. Yeah, be right back.